Fort Worth is allowing corporations to manipulate your kindness to profit. We're also going to talk about 50-year mortgage, portable mortgage, and we'll touch on the numbers of what's going on in MLS. So without further ado, let's hop into it real quick. So the past week in the DFW market, we've seen 7,165 homes hit the market. That's going to be 6,306 new listings and 859 homes come back on the market. We had a total of 13,145 homes went under contract or came off the market. And you can see the numbers right here, so we're not going to go into too much detail about it. I will say the good thing is we are seeing sold homes and pending properties. So once again, we're seeing properties move. Arguably, we're in a normal market right now. Things feel similar to how they were pre-COVID. Also, mortgage rates. Where's the mortgage rates today? Well, today the 30-year fixed mortgage is sitting at 6.38%, which is up a little bit from last week. Last Monday, we were sitting at 6.32%. Now, this is going to happen. We're going to see this kind of ebb and flow through over the next few months. And it's a little uncertain whether they are or are not going to bring down the Fed rate by another quarter in December. I have a funny feeling that they will, but ultimately we'll have to wait and see how that unfolds when it happens. Let's talk about 50-year mortgages real quick. I know this is a hot topic. It's a lot of videos out there on it. I'll be honest, a lot of it's speculation. We don't genuinely know how this is going to unfold. We can look at products like a 40-year mortgage and kind of determine how it's going to happen a little bit. So here you could take a look. You should get a 15-year, a 30-year, or a 50-year mortgage. Well, let's look at the pros and cons to this. A 15-year, you're going to get a lower interest rate, but you're going to have a much higher payment, sitting just a little over $8,000 a month. A 30-year, I'd argue, is probably your best bang for your buck. You're getting a little bit higher interest rate at 5.5, and then your payment's going to be $5,734. Now, if you went with the 50-year mortgage, you're going to get that higher interest rate and you're going to get a lower payment, and you're only going to be saving about $450 every month on the payment. Let's be honest, if you're buying $1 million home, $500 shouldn't be that big of a deal. Not saying it's not a big deal. That's a car payment for some folks, but I'm just saying it's not a massive savings in that kind of a price range. But I'm here to tell you, people will use this product and it will push home values up if it comes into place because so many consumers look and see like, okay, I have this much money to put down and this is a payment I'm comfortable with. Hey, 50-year makes that happen. I like that home. I'm going to use a 50-year mortgage. Now let's talk about portable mortgages. This one's actually kind of exciting and I like the idea of it, but I do think it's going to give an advantage to some buyers and not others. But here's the basic idea. Say you bought a home in 2015 for $150,000 and you got a 3% interest rate, and now you only owe $50,000 on that home, and you want to buy a $300,000 home. Okay, well, portable mortgage would allow you to move that original 150 note, add its original interest rate to the new property, and then you'd have to get another mortgage on top of that for $150,000. Remember, you buying a $300,000 home here at the market rate. So I don't know how this is actually going to be structured because it might cost more in fees just because you're essentially getting two loans. And then it also makes me wonder, like, can you sell your house and essentially end that mortgage and then transfer it over to a new one? Or would you have to do some sort of a like bridge loan or something of that nature? And if you did have to do a bridge loan, I've got a great product right now. And in fact, I've got consumers that have been using it just so they don't have to be a contingent buyer. And the nice thing about this, it's only going to cost about 1% to 2%. It's going to eliminate a lot of stress. It's going to give you more negotiating power as a buyer, and you're not going to be stuck with that whole stress of waiting to sell your home. So if you'd like to know some more information about this, go ahead and comment bridge or message me bridge, the word bridge, and then I'll go ahead and send you some information on this. Because I said, it's a great product for buyers in today's market right now. Now, with that being said, I've got a couple questions about how these portable mortgages are actually going to be structured. And if you want to keep your old house as like a rental, can you transfer part of that mortgage over? So let's say in that same theory, you've paid off $100,000. Could you leave $50,000 with your old house and keep paying on that and then move the $100,000 over to your new home and then finance the rest? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work. And also, what if you paid your home off? Let's say that same scenario, you bought the home in 2015, you've made double payments every payment, and you just paid the home off, and you're like, hey, I kind of want to buy a home. Well, since you've paid that home off, is that that just gone? Like, is that good interest rate just faded in the wind like a fart? Or could you reactivate it and then now you could use that 150 to buy another home? So I don't know. I can't really find the information on this because guess what? It's not a thing yet. It's all just speculation at the end of the day. Now, let's get to the juicy part of today's video. Let's talk about what the city of Fort Worth has been doing. And it's not just Fort Worth, there's other places, but I live in Fort Worth, so that's why we're going to talk about Fort Worth right now. And Fort Worth is the 11th largest city in the US, and it's growing fast. And with that growth is coming some growing pains. And more people need to start showing up to developer meetings. You see, this past Friday night, a client shot me a text message and said, "Hey, did you hear about that developer meeting that's tonight at like 6:30 or 7 or something like that?" I was like, "No, I had no idea about it." And I really try to stay on top of stuff. Well, what happened is these developers plan these meetings a little bit later in the evening, a little bit later at night. They don't really make a big to-do about it. And if nobody shows up, well, they don't get any opposition and they're able to move these developments through. And then people start seeing this stuff go up, like, what the heck is that? Well, this is what it is. Okay, I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna be professional about this. I'm not gonna allow my emotions to take over because it really did frustrate me. So last Friday night, I sat through this development meeting with my family. And I got to tell you, they had their emotional stick all ready to go. They're like, we're going to help teachers and firefighters and police officers and all these folks. But then when they went to the next slide, you found out that the way that this is structured, that's not the case because anybody that does those professions makes too much money to qualify for these programs. Why? Well, it's because the real goal for this affordable housing, they have to have the government subsidies to make these work or they're not profitable for the developers, right? So I'm going to go straight to the point on this. I'm not a big fan of any more apartments in 76244, and I'm especially not a fan of projects that depend on milking taxpayers' money to keep it afloat, meaning if the government's not helping them out, these things wouldn't even be a possibility. And these folks are not, and when I say folks, I'm talking about the developers. These folks are not building pathways for homeownership and they're not building pathways for long-term wealth. They're building lifelong dependent customers. They set the income limits just low enough that you can survive in these properties, but you can't thrive in them and you can't get ahead. You won't move up and you won't break out. And that's not affordable housing. That's manufactured dependency. And I'm not a big fan of that. And I'm not a big fan of how they take advantage of people's kindness to essentially line their pocketbooks because the taxpayers in the community get hit hard. The people that live in the properties don't have the best quality of life, to be quite honest, when you talk to most of them. It's just a place to live. It's not necessarily something they want to do. It's just something they kind of have to do. Meanwhile, the developers make a ton of money. So what does this mean for sellers and buyers? Well, if you're a seller and you hear of one of these going in and you want to sell, if that's already been put through and the plans are in place, you have to tell potential buyers about this coming in. And I've actually had situations where sellers didn't want to divulge that and they actually got sued by buyers and they lost. I'm not going to go whole detail, but I actually had this happen twice since I've been in real estate. I didn't get the listing. They ended up listing with an agent that wouldn't divulge that information. And in both situations, the people got sold or sued. And it wasn't a higher priced properties in Southlake and Colleyville. People that have money have the ability to sue. People that don't have the money maybe don't have the ability to sue. Now, for buyers, you really need to be very diligent when you're looking at properties. You need to find out what's going on in the communities, what's being developed, what's not being developed. And one of the best ways to do this is to lean on your real estate agent as long as they do this full time. But it's also not a bad idea to go through open houses and just kind of talk to random agents and get that little bit of insight because that local knowledge still matters. Because guess what? At the end of the day, ChatGPT still doesn't know everything. It knows a lot, but it doesn't know everything. But anyways, folks, I hope this was helpful. I hope you got some insight on this. If you'd like to know more about those bridge loans, go ahead and comment bridge, and I'll make sure I'll send that information over to you. So until next week, hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a great day.